Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. We just passed 850 subs. Thank you guys so much for all the support on this amazing journey, and I hope I can continue to make great content you guys will enjoy in the future. Now, the Depaul Blue Demons, they just landed a transfer portal addition, and a much-needed one at that, with Elijah Fisher, a former top 30 recruit. He was a freshman this past season for Texas Tech. He's a 6'5", 190-pound forward/guard, and he did not have the season that a lot of people were expecting him to have with Texas Tech this past season, but he's looking for a new home and a new opportunity with the Depaul Blue Demons. I'm going to go over whether I think Elijah Fisher can help Depaul be competitive in the Big East next season at all, and whether I think Tony Stubblefield can find a way to get the Blue Demons back on track. Now, looking at Depaul, they were once a proud program, and they had so much success, and if you look at their past, and you look at the Depaul program, they went from a team that were having so much success back in the past in the 60s and 70s. Look at all the winning that they did back in the past. They have not made the NCAA tournament, however, since 2004. So they have gone from this, unfortunately, to this. And whether Depaul can ever get it turned around is to be determined because of the fact, unfortunately, Depaul is just in a conference that is so basketball-oriented, and all of these teams want to win. It is a competitive conference. Every team beats up on each other. And unfortunately, Depaul has not had success for the last 30 to 40 years, and that is unfortunately why Depaul has fallen from grace. Also, they were a recruiting hotbed in Chicago back in the day. So many players came out of Chicago and played at a high level, which is why Depaul had so much success back in the 70s and 80s, but today DePaul just does not have that recruiting pull because so many players leave Chicago and play in other parts of the country with these bigger programs, and DePaul just can't have success. And if Tony Stubblefield, who I do think is doing everything he possibly can to turn DePaul around, if he doesn't get it turned around soon, he's going to end up like Dave Leoto, the former DePaul head coach, where he got fired, and he had Max Strus, and DePaul actually was slightly competitive those couple years they did have Max Strus, and he's now with the Miami Heat in the NBA lighting it up. And DePaul has not had that type talent since. And Max Strus is not like he was that talented. He just ended up being a great player that went to the pros. But still, Tony Stubblefield, he had DePaul go 10-23 this past season, and he had Emoja Gibson, the former Oklahoma guard, on his team, and he tried. He did everything he possibly could. But unfortunately for the Blue Demons, it only helped them get ahead of Georgetown in the Big East standings. So that's not going to get it done. But looking at the DePaul Blue Demons, Emoja Gibson, he is gone. He's out of eligibility. But I think what's going to really help out DePaul is not the returning talent that they have coming back, because they've got some players that are solid that are returning for this year of college basketball. But it's going to be players like Elijah Fisher, who DePaul just brought in, a former top 30 recruit that has a lot of talent. It just did not happen for him at Texas Tech this past season. But he averaged 3.3 points per game, 2 rebounds, and 0.4 assists. So that's not a very good sign to see that he did not pass the ball at a high level. Yes, he didn't play too much for Texas Tech. It's not like he played 25 minutes a game, was only averaging this. But the 0.4 assists needs to improve. You have to be a guy that can pass the ball to your teammates at a high level, especially when you are on the shorter side. 6'6" isn't the tallest in the world. He could probably up that to hopefully for DePaul next season 1 to 2 assists per game. The 3.3 points per game and 2 rebounds, I think if you project that to more minutes, maybe he could be a guy that averages 9-10 points per game for DePaul next season. If he can do that, surrounded by the talent that DePaul is bringing in through the transfer portal besides him, they could have more success potentially next season. Elijah Fisher shot 46.1% from the field, 25% from the three-point line, and 58.6% at the free throw line. That free throw number is not good at all. You're going to have to improve that. The three-point shooting percentage, not terrible for a guy that didn't play too often, and he was a freshman. There have been a lot of players that have struggled even more than that from the three-point line. Obviously, he needs to improve on that three-point number, but when you're a guy that doesn't play a lot of minutes, it is tough to shoot a great percentage from the three-point line, but he is going to have to improve at that. The free throw number has to improve. The field goal percentage at 46% is not too bad, but overall, Elijah Fisher, at the very least, improves the talent at DePaul. It raises the talent level up to be able to potentially help DePaul compete with more of these talented teams in the Big East, but DePaul still has nowhere near enough talent for them to be able to be a top half team in the Big East, I don't think, but maybe not the worst team in the Big East and potentially can improve on that 10-23 record. It is a possibility, but the Big East is stacked with UConn, who just won a national national title this past season. Marquette, Xavier, Villanova, Providence, all these teams. St. John's now with Rick Pitino. It's just a bad time for DePaul to be in the Big East. But at least Tony Stubblefield is trying, and he is going to have to keep doing what he is doing to help the Blue Demons have success. And they are bringing in Chico Carter, the former South Carolina guard, through the transfer portal. He averaged 9.8 points per game this past season. He has some talent, and the fact you're bringing a guy in from the SEC at South Carolina, that's a pretty good sign there. I think Chico Carter could be a solid player next to Elijah Fisher in the starting lineup for DePaul. They're also bringing in Minnesota transfer Jaden Henley. That's not a bad addition either because he's coming from the Big Ten. So at least you do have DePaul bringing in guys from the Power 6 level. They're not coming from smaller schools, which there's nothing wrong with that. Some guys from smaller schools can be great, and they also got a guy from a smaller school in Power Forward transfer from Wyoming, Jeremiah Oden. He could be a decent addition as well for DePaul next year. But if DePaul's going to have success, it's going to be through Elijah Fisher, Chico Carter, and Jaden Henley being a three-man tandem to potentially help DePaul be competitive next season. And they also have a three-man recruiting class with Babacar Magundi. He's a three-star recruit. You also have Jermaine Camara. He's a 6'5" player that's unranked. And they also have Keandre Young, who's a 6'7" who's unranked. So they're not the highest rated guys in the world, but they have potential. And their top guy, the three-star recruit, he's a 7-foot center, Babacar Magundi. He could possibly be a guy that steps up at a high level because he's 7 feet tall. It is always tough for taller guys to be able to adjust to the college game, but he might be a problem for opposing defenses in the Big East because there's not a lot of 7-footers in the conference, so maybe he'll be able to step up for DePaul next year. They have some guys that are coming that could potentially help improve the DePaul roster next year, but the three-man freshman class, we're going to have to see if they're going to be able to come in and step up. Unfortunately for DePaul, they're just not bringing in 4- and 5-star recruits knocking down the Blue Demons' door, but at least Elijah Fisher is a former top 30 recruit. That is your blue chip player, even though Chico Carter could be the guy that scores the most points for DePaul next season of all these players that they're bringing in, or Jaden Henley as well. I feel like Elijah Fisher has the most upside. He could be a guy that definitely improves for DePaul next season and averages around 9 to 10 points per game. But if you're ever going to see DePaul get back to the sunshine and roses of the 60s and 70s, you're going to have to see DePaul make some massive step forwards this year. They're not going to be able to go and improve from 10 and 23 to like 12 and 21. They're going to have to like go 16 and 15, potentially make the NIT, be competitive in the Big East, do some damage, beat some teams toward the top of the conference to be able to show that Tony Stubblefield is improving the team. And if he's not able to do that, if Tony Stubblefield can't get that done and DePaul just keeps losing at a high rate, DePaul's never going to get back on track, and it's going to be very difficult for any coach to want to go there because they know they're going to be there for 3 or 4 years and be fired just like Dave Leoto was. We'll have to see what happens. I hope that DePaul can get back to the success they had back in the past. I always like seeing these old programs that had so much success in their history being able to come back up from the ashes and have a lot of success again. And DePaul, if they are able to come back around and compete in the Big East, that would be so cool to see. But we'll have to see what's going to happen in the future. I feel like Elijah Fisher's the best recruit DePaul has brought in because of the potential he has. And if he can up his points per game to around 10, 11 points per game, and then the other guys that DePaul brought in will be able to have a lot of success around. Potentially DePaul can increase on that 10-win season they had last year, but we're going to have to see for sure. But a good job by Tony Stubblefield bringing in Elijah Fisher from the transfer from Texas Tech, a former top 30 recruit. But we're definitely going to have to see if Tony Stubblefield is going to be able to turn DePaul around next season, and if Elijah Fisher will be the guy leading the way for him. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below what you think about Elijah Fisher transferring from Texas Tech to DePaul, and whether you think that the DePaul Blue Demons can have more success next year, whether you think DePaul will ever get back to the success they had back in the 70s. So follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I will see you next time.